I think it first began when I was about 6, maybe 7 years old. It was around 11ish and I'd been lying there for ages trying to sleep. Suddenly, I noticed something moving on the ledge outside of my window. At first I wasn't sure what it was. Then I realised it was just a bird. The house sat at an angle on the corner and the streetlight illuminated my bedroom window, so my first thought was that a bird had just landed there and was just walking back and forth, bobbing its head up and down like a pigeon. So I grabbed my flashlight, one of those kids' toys from the 70s which came with a bunch of slides that you could shine on a wall. So I jumped out of bed and went over to the window and shone the flashlight, expecting to see the bird take off. But to my surprise, there was nothing there. The following night, there it was again. And once again I grabbed my flashlight and shone it at the window. And again it was gone. So next night I was wide awake and ready with the blinds open and flashlight in hand. On this occasion there was no delay. It simply didn't have time to take flight, but nonetheless it had vanished. Although this time my father had been outside with the family dog and caught sight of my flashlight shining through the bedroom window. So he immediately came up to my room to find out what I was up to and why at almost midnight I was not in bed sleeping. Well, I'd explained what I'd been seeing, but he just shrugged it off as a childhood dream. Anyway, the next morning I went down to breakfast and now had to face my mother. Now, my mother was a little bit different from my father. She was a little bit more open to the unusual, however, not on this occasion, because like my father, she just shrugged it off as a dream. This continued on and off for many months. The summer came and went and I'd, just grown used to it, and really never mentioned it anymore. Until, that is, this one weekend. Every now and then, my grandmother would come stay with us, giving my parents the opportunity to go out for an evening. So, it was late and I was excited. Nana was staying with us meant one thing: late night stories and cookies. So we'd settled in. I was in bed with Nana sitting next to me with the cookies on a plate, and so the story began. I don't remember what it was about because Nana never read from books. She just had this huge catalogue of stories, some spooky, others just interesting, stored somewhere in her mind. And tonight was no different. She turned off my bedside lamp and I lay back and listened. Then suddenly she stopped. "What's wrong?" I asked. She pointed to my window and said, "Oh, a bird is on the ledge," and continued with the story. Well, I was all excited by now because somebody else was seeing the damn things. So, eventually with some prompting from me, she went over to the window and looked out and said, "Oh, it's gone." Well, this was forgotten, or so I thought. The weeks rolled on and I continued to see the birds every now and again, although by now I'd lost interest. Once again, Nana was here to stay for the weekend, and once again she saw the birds. Yes, birds, because by now there were several. However, on this occasion, her reaction was different. I could see the concern in her face. I didn't know what she was seeing, I didn't know why, and I still don't. But I know whatever she saw that night left her concerned because she said to me, "Leave that lamp on." I knew that tone of voice and I knew I would leave that lamp on all night. I've asked several times over the years what had happened, but she never would say. However, the following morning I do know this. She headed out into town with my mother and he returned with a pair of heavy window drapes, not something you'd normally hang in a kid's bedroom. My blinds were removed and the curtains went up, and after that, every night for as long as we lived there, my mother came into my room and ensured those curtains were pulled tightly shut. We continued to live there for a while longer. I'd forgotten about the birds and was your average happy mischievous kid. And shortly after my 9th birthday, I was sitting at the top of the stairs. I'd gotten this huge construction site crane and was happily winching things up and down the stairs when suddenly, out the corner of my eye, I caught sight of someone. Just a glimpse of a shadow, although I never really thought much of it because my parents were down there somewhere. I thought it was probably just one of them. However, over the next few months, I began seeing this figure more and more. Just a quick glimpse at the bottom of the staircase. Never in full view, just a shadow in my peripheral vision. Obviously I was scared, but I was also a big boy now, and big boys didn't admit to being scared. So, I'd race up the stairs and race back down, never pausing on that spot. Over the next couple of years, I became accustomed to catching sight of this figure every now and then, and honestly, it bothered me less and less. We lived in that house until I was about 11, and moved just a few streets away into a much larger place, and that appeared to be that. No shadowy birds on the window ledge, no figures standing at the bottom of the stairs, so the memory of it all just kinda slipped away. The years rolled by and we found ourselves moving once again. By now I was 17. Nana had passed away the year before and I'd just left school. This place was much larger though. However, right from the moment I set foot in that house, I knew it was different. From that very first night, I began seeing shadows. Again, not in full view, just out of the corner of my eye. Then, like before, I'd look and they were gone. Always in darkened rooms and always at night. I couldn't talk to anyone about it. This was long before the internet, so it wasn't as if I could look it up online or seek advice from a group, so I just lived with it. We settled in and things went quiet for a couple of years. However, I decided I wanted a different bedroom. The one I occupied was small, and so eventually I convinced my parents to allow me to move into what I guess was meant to be a dining room just off the kitchen. It was great, much larger, and I was less than 20 steps away from the refrigerator, and could make much more noise without irritating my parents below. Months went by, and like the shadows from my childhood at the bottom of those stairs, I became used to them. They never really did anything other than just pass through. On occasion, I'd even see the birds on my window ledge, but I was in my late teens and had other things on my mind. Then one evening, I think I was about 22, I'd been lying in bed reading and around midnight put down my book, reached over and turned out the light. Then suddenly, as I lay back down I saw it, this figure over 6 feet tall. This wasn't a shadow caught in my peripheral vision. No, this was a solid black figure standing there at the bottom of my bed looking directly at me. Although I couldn't see any facial features, but I do know it was male. And he was standing there looking directly at me. So I screamed out in blind terror, frantically grabbing at my bedside lamp. Then, out of nowhere, my father burst into the room and I realised it was gone. Afterwards, my father once again shrugged it off as just another nightmare. But my mother, well, she wasn't so sure this time. It wasn't until many years later, shortly before her death, she admitted that from time to time she too thought she'd seen shadowy figures in that house. and that had been the reason why we'd finally left. Well, now I'm in my 50s, I still occasionally catch a glimpse of a shadow in my peripheral vision. Now, I know many would say it's all just an overactive imagination, and that's okay, it's just their opinion. But I can honestly say this, I never want to experience that again, so to this day, I always sleep with a small light on.